Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's fight week, ladies and germs. It's fight week. It's fight week for Sky Nicolson like it's fight week for Raven Chapman. This fight, at least for me, is happening ahead of schedule. I didn't expect to see this soon. I expected that by the time these two fighters fight, the both of them will be champions. But as it stands, Sky is the champion, Raven is the challenger. Raven is 30 years old to Sky Nicolson, who's 29. Raven is an orthodox fighter to Sky Nicolson, who's a southpaw. BoxRec has Raven registered as being the taller, longer fighter, but that's not the case. Raven is actually the shorter, stumpier fighter of the two, whether or not she actually stands in at 5'7", or if it's Sky Nicolson that stands in at 5'7", I'm not sure. I just know that Raven is the shorter, stumpier fighter of the two. Not really a disadvantage, depending on the fighter's methodology. How you use it. Raven sports a professional record of 9 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts, to Sky Nicolson, who sports a professional record of 11 wins with no losses, no draws, 1 knockout. I would say that Raven Chapman is the stronger and more aggressive fighter of the two, but she's going to have to get close to Sky. For the power to matter, she's got to be able to close the distance, pin her down, and let punches go. And that's the assignment for any fighter opposite the ring, Sky Nicolson. You've got to catch her. You've got to catch up to her. Her being a long-distance fighter with those long levers, it makes it difficult. Pesky. Because she's going to peck away at you from a safe distance. And if you try to close it, she's going to take a half step back or start moving lateral, circling away, to walk you into punches as you look to close it. To get in close. Raven brings more to the table and more to the fight than anybody that Sky Nicolson has fought so far. And while it is true that the same can be said in reverse, that Sky brings more to the table than anybody Raven has fought so far. I think Raven's got the right ingredients for Sky. The hand speed, the combinations, the foot speed to keep up with her and keep on her. This is a fight that she has to win with her feet. It's critical. I would have liked to have seen Raven Chapman fight the likes of a Sarah Mahfoud, a long and limber fighter that can make themselves a moving target ahead of this fight. I would have liked to have seen how Raven handles an assignment like that. Sarah would have been good preparation for Sky. She's coming off a dominant points win over Johanna Sarabia, then unbeaten Johanna Sarabia. Kind of fighter that's cut from the same cookie cutter as, say, a Diana Vargas. The last girl that Sky fought. Those two opponents, what they bring to the table, it is interchangeable. That a Johanna Sarabia is just as good as a Diana Vargas. I do feel like Raven's quality of competition has been a bit better than Sky Nicolson's. Just a bit. That a lot of the girls that Sky fought, she had advantages over, whereas the girls that Raven fought, like a former champion in Jorgelina Guanini, an unbeaten aggressive fighter in Lila Furtado. Very aggressive, very strong. Another one in Johanna Sarabia. I feel like Raven was able to take away more from those fights with those fighters than Sky was able to take away from the fighters that she fought, because they were tailor-made for her. Many of them were tailor-made for Sky Nicolson. A slow-footed Diana Vargas, slow-footed, short, stocky, stumpy Sabrina Perez. Was the same with Linda Lake. It was the exact same thing. Disorganized Tania Alvarez, very green fighter, unbeaten, yes, but very green and very disorganized. I like Raven's quality of competition so far a bit better than I like Sky's. What I like about Sky is her confidence. Approaching this fight, what should be the most difficult fight of her career, at least on paper, you'd never know it from her demeanor. She's supremely confident going in. Striking. Sexy, like a pizza with pineapples on it. Ooh. Very capable. Exudes that confidence openly, whereas Raven keeps a more quiet reserve. Quiet confidence. I've spoken to her on the channel on more than one occasion, and you'd never know it to look at her, never know it to speak to her, that she's as intense under the hot lights, as persistent inside the ring as she is, because she's a lot more laid back. The contrasting personalities, the contrasting styles, it makes for a very interesting fight. And I struggle with the idea that Sky's going to be able to keep Raven off and keep her out all night. As intense as she is, as persistent as she is, and as light on her feet as she can be when closing the distance, doubling up and tripling up on the jab, targeting the head, targeting the body. You stop moving for a second,
Raven's gonna be on top of you.
And Raven don't throw singles. She throws 3 and 4 punch combinations, sometimes 5 punch combinations. Sky has to move. That is her bread and butter, but how much movement is too much movement?
How much?
I love this fight. An overview of it. I am leaning towards Raven. I am. Not just because Queensberry's been kicking Matchroom's ass every chance they get.
I'm leaning towards Raven.
But I've always thought she's got the right ingredients for this assignment, for this particular fight. She just has to summon the right ones.
Talk more about the fight later in the week.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, another look at the back and forth exchange between Teofimo Lopez and Terence Crawford this past weekend. Terence, who said, "I respect all fighters, but Teofimo Lopez only fought 3 fighters even worth talking about, and that's Lomachenko and Ortiz beat him. Taylor lost his fight before Teo and definitely should have moved up to 147, but we all know why he killed himself to make 140.
He's talking about Josh Taylor.
So what I've seen Terence's critics doing lately is tearing down his resume, pretending that the only good fighter that he ever fought was Errol Spence Jr.
While claiming that Errol Spence was damaged goods.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because if you're gonna say that Errol was damaged goods going into the Crawford fight, then Vasyl Lomachenko must have been damaged goods going into the Lopez fight. He had an injured shoulder and surgery for that injury right after the Lopez fight. If you're telling me Errol was damaged goods, I guess Lomachenko was damaged goods.
Josh Taylor too.
They say that Errol Spence Jr. was weight drained going into the Crawford fight. And what do you think Josh Taylor was?
Coming off a terrible performance in the Jack Catterall fight, a year of inactivity, and an injury.
Plantar fasciitis. If you're gonna tear down Terence's resume, I can do that with Teofimo's.
Who can play that game?
Teofimo, who said, "We either lace up the gloves or shut your hoe ass up." Hashtag enough talking. To which Terence responded, "Show me I'm a hoe when I see you." Need some money, little bitch boy? You can't fight nobody and you know it. Just trying to keep your name relevant. Top Rank's got you where you're getting screwed over, little bitch boy.
The people egging on this back and forth are far too immature to pay attention to what Terence is saying, what I've been saying here on the channel the whole time. Teofimo is not at liberty to fight whoever he wants, wherever he wants, because he's still under contract to Top Rank. So whatever you claim you want to do, they have to approve it first. You would have to run it by them first.
There's no two ways about it. If you're serious about fighting Terence Crawford, have you told Todd Dubove? Have you told Bob Arum, Carl Moretti? Have you told them?
Because you're still under contract, my friend.
Terence Crawford said, "Teofimo, it looks like you're the one in a messed up situation with Top Rank. You want to fight? What are you contracted to fight for?"
Right.
"Laugh now, cry later," said Teofimo. "I'll fight you for free. Destroying your legacy is worth more than money to me."
Hashtag you've always been a fan.
I think Teofimo is just doing this for appearance's sake. I can't stress that enough. I think this is all about appearing a certain way, appearing like you want the fight.
Appearance's sake.
To cultivate favor by saying things publicly that sound good and look good. To distract people from the fact that you just swerved Brian Norman. You were supposed to fight Brian last month and you called it off. You want to draw attention away from that and try to get people to focus on this, try to get people to believe you want to fight Terence Crawford when you just ducked Brian Norman. Why would a guy who swerves Brian Norman want to fight Terence Crawford? "Boxing is a sport," said Lopez. "Please stop trying to make the business more important than us fighting for the best against the best." That all sounds good. But if that's the case and that's how you feel, why are you not fighting? Why did you take the rest of the year off? There was plenty of time to schedule another fight. You're not injured, you're not otherwise preoccupied, not based on how much time you're spending on social media.
You ain't busy. Why ain't you fighting?
Hashtag make boxing great again. How about you quit with the hashtags, put the phone down, get in the gym and get ready to fight?
Huh?
How about that?
A Twitter user that goes by the name Isaiah said, "I am a fan, but why should you get a chance before other fighters in his weight class? That doesn't make sense."
To which Lopez responded, "Because others don't push a momentum sensible enough to create chaos. Black and brown is how we get down."
What?
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Gave the game away right there. Some people are too stupid to see it. He gave it away. He's just trying to create a stir. He's just trying to create chaos. Get people talking about him in some context, Because he's not fighting. Even if it's about a fight, that is unlikely to happen.
He's just winding everybody up.
People have fallen for it. People in the boxing world are actually falling for it. I think it was boxing scribe Hans Themistode who said Teofimo would be the most difficult and credible opponent on Terrence's resume.
What?
And this guy writes about boxing.
Apparently. So Teofimo losing to George Kambosos and struggling with Sandor Martin, getting dropped 2 times by a guy who don't even punch hard at a lighter weight than Terrence fights now. No, I'm done holding people's hands. You should know better. You're supposed to be a boxing writer.
Most difficult, most credible. Do you not understand how weight classes work? What would make Teofimo a credible scalp at junior middleweight? Because that's where Terence Crawford fights. That's where he's currently negotiating a fight with Sebastian Fundura. You're saying that he should put off the unification match with him to fight a guy from 140 who started out at 135.
Because that's more credible.
Welcome to the American boxing scene, where the most idiotic conversations gain traction.
Stupid.
Because the people are stupid. And so, after a few verbal jabs, Terence makes the recommendation that if Teofimo wants to fight him so bad, he should fight Israel Madrimov first. He said, Teofimo, if you fight and beat Israel Madrimov next, I'll whoop your ass next. Bet? Let's see how much you want to fight now.
The problem with such a recommendation is that logic can be turned against Terence Crawford. You claim you want to fight Canelo Alvarez, so why don't you fight Jaime Munguia first? Or Edgar Berlanga first, where you want to be fast-tracked to Canelo, no interruptions, no deviations. Teofimo claims he wants to be fast-tracked to you, even if I don't believe him.
It's still a bit hypocritical to expect him to jump through hoops, go through obstacles to get to you.
Come on.
Teofimo doesn't win that fight. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it or beat around the bush. He don't beat Israel Madrimov. Stylistically, that's a nightmare for him. Stylistically, physically, he ain't got it. You guys haven't even seen Teofimo as a welterweight yet. So how do you think he would make out at junior middle against Israel Madrimov, who made Terence Crawford look human?
What's he gonna do to Teofimo?
I'll tell you, if Teofimo tries to hang back and set up a counterpunch, Israel Madrimov, being the taller fighter, the longer fighter, and the bouncier fighter of the two, that Soviet pendulum step, he'll be able to connect straight punches and looping punches from the outside coming in, then step out before Teofimo can counter, before he can land.
Teofimo is a short, stumpy fighter. He's a short, stumpy fighter at 140. What do you think he'd be at 154?
Israel Madrimov would be able to connect with straight punches and looping punches from the outside coming in with some regularity and the safety of getting out of striking distance before Teofimo can respond with those short arms. That's if Teofimo hangs back. If Teofimo comes forward, he's even more vulnerable.
That's wise.
Teofimo is not good at initiating. He's not good on the front foot. We saw that in the Kambosos fight, the Sandor Martin fight, the more recent Jermaine Ortiz fight.
Aggression is not necessarily his forte, not when he's the one that's trying to lead the dance. If you step to Israel, he's just gonna step back and walk you into a counter.
Because he's a bit taller than you are and longer than you are, you can do it safely.
You tell yourselves that because Teofimo is a more familiar face than an Israel Madrimov, who's fought more familiar fighters than an Israel Madrimov, that has anything to do with how a fight between them would play out. What essentially you're stuck on is promotion. Who was promoted?
It's what you're stuck on. It's what you're talking about. You're not talking about boxing, nuts and bolts boxing, because in terms of boxing, Israel knocks this kid out. That's not a hard pick.
Hard prediction.
Terence knocks him out too. It doesn't matter what you did at 135, and it doesn't matter what little you've accomplished at 140. At 154, you'd be a fish out of water.
You're too little.
You don't even punch as hard as you used to. You don't punch as hard at 140 as you did at 135. If you did, you would have been able to get Steve Claggett out of there.
That guy stood in front of you for all 36 minutes of a 12-round contest, a 12-round fight, and you couldn't knock him down, you couldn't knock him out. So what the hell are you gonna do at junior middle?
Get your ass kicked. That's what. Talk about what conversations gain traction in the American boxing scene, however asinine or arbitrary they might be. This is one of them. How could anyone of sound mind?
Let me stop you right there. A lot of these people that are rallying behind Teofimo Lopez, they have an agenda. They're either disgruntled Canelo fans who are angry that Terrence wants to fight him,
As if that's anything to be angry about, or they're disgruntled Errol Spence fans who want revenge and are willing to rally behind everyone who's in opposition of Terrence.
whether it's Teofimo, a Boots, or the Milkman.
Everybody's got an agenda. When I see this conversation is actually gaining traction in the American boxing scene, I'm reminded of how agenda-driven the American boxing scene is.
Now, let's be honest, some of these people are just racists.
Some of them are. It's the truth. It's reality. For some, what they don't like about Terrence Crawford doesn't have a whole lot to do with boxing.
You don't fool anybody.
You make a fight between Terrence and Teofimo, and you know what happens? They're gonna talk smack. They're gonna talk their shit all the way up until Terrence Crawford annihilates this kid. Then afterwards, they won't give him any credit.
It's the Spence thing all over again.
Spence's fans, all the way leading into the fight, said he was the eye collector. He's gonna snatch Terrence Crawford's eye out. He's gonna beat him up. He's gonna knock him out. He's gonna do this. He's gonna do that. So that when the opposite happens, and it's Terrence brutalizing him,
They don't give him any credit. You think they're gonna give him credit for Teofimo?
these are low quality people, low brow, low quality humans. Their word means nothing.
Nada.
Zero. I mean, even the fighters that take claim to support, look at the metrics, look at the numbers of the fighters they supposedly like Gervonta Davis. It's pathetic. No, I don't get too caught up in the opinions of the Gentiles,
The vulgars.
the vagabonds. I'm just telling you, anybody putting a battery behind Teofimo's back, backing him to beat Terrence, urging him to fight Terrence,
They're gonna flip the script as soon as he loses.
because that's all Teofimo would do in that fight, whether it's Terrence or Israel Madrimov. They both spank him. They both beat him. That's not obvious?
No, it's obvious. But while you still have time to talk shit, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna talk shit.
It's all you really can do, because when push comes to shove, you don't even believe what you're saying.
You're just talking because you got a mouth.
We'd all be better off if you just shut the hell up.